Hi, everybody. We're here to talk a little bit more about you achieving your educational goals during and post this COVID world. Myself here, my name is Trey Cocker, and I work at Wisconsin Lutheran College in our degree completion program. And I'm joined by my colleague, Andy Zimdars, who also works as an enrollment advisor in our graduate studies program. We're going to talk a little bit more today about you as an adult learner, whether you're thinking about going back to school and just a little apprehensive, especially right now, and some questions to ask and help you through that process. So we're located, just to give you an idea, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We're right across the street from the Medical College of Wisconsin, down the street from the Milwaukee Zoo. Just to give you some context of where we're at, if you wanted to reach out to Andy and I, definitely do so, or even swing by campus anytime this spring or summer. Heading into what we're going to talk about today, I just wanted to lay out what a student profile really looks like for our students moving forward. And Andy will go into a little bit more details here in these bullet points to kind of explain who we work with on a daily basis. And then you can decide, hey, that's a lot like me, and I have a lot of relating points to those individuals.
So as Trey said, you probably looking through these categories and you can align or identify with one of these. These are typically the characteristics, the profiles of students that Trey and I get the privilege to work with. And depending on where you land on one of these profiles, will kind of then determine the questions you need to ask and some of the things you might be thinking about as you go into the process of continuing to go back to school. So if life happened, school got put in the back burner, you really want to talk to your advisor about what are those things that might be able to align better with your schedule now. How can your advisor build a plan that goes with your schedule for that educational and professional motivation? How will this degree that I'm going to get allow me to make more money, get a promotion, things like that? So those are the types of questions you'll want to ask, and we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a minute.
And we're coming off a year where no bigger moment happened than a pandemic. So you may have been thinking this time last year that you wanted to continue your education for those educational and professional reasons, but there was just way too much going on this year. If you had kids, maybe you were at home with them all year trying to be teacher and do your job remotely. We understand that now with things getting a little bit back closer to normal. Hopefully, this will give you some encouragement to move forward with those goals heading into this year. We want to talk about these roadblocks because we don't want to overlook some of the main concerns that you might have, even as we get back out into normal after the pandemic, about returning to school. Obviously, the big one is cost. What is this going to cost me? And is it going to be worth it? Is there going to be a return on my investment? Am I going to make more money, like Andy just mentioned? Is this going to be valuable for me and my family? Schedule. You're busy. Thinking about putting more things on your plate is a tough thing to do. So we understand scheduling is a roadblock we need to overcome as well. Format, maybe you can't come face to face for classes because you're not near us in Milwaukee. Andy and I both have online programs as well. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Some of those resources that you might be thinking, hey, do you have these? Can I do school this way? Because there's no way I can come face to face. Or even right now, maybe you're not comfortable coming yet into that face to face format, being around people and being on site. Incentives, what is that incentive for going back to school? A lot of that has to do with the cost and the return on your investment. Figuring out what that incentive is very important for every student. It could be a roadblock because you haven't really defined that incentive yet. You haven't said, I'm going back to school for this reason. I'm continuing my education for this reason. So, cost, schedule, format, what your incentive is. Andy and I definitely can talk with that or through all that with you, determine those things and make sure that you're making a really good decision for yourself moving forward.
Looking at the right side of these roadblocks, support. Who are your support systems? Who's going to help you with the kids when you need to go to class or do homework? Thinking about that is really important as you look at your ability to take this on. Technology, you'd be surprised. Technology in the past was something that we used to hear as a roadblock. And nowadays, I think so many of you are already on a smartphone doing things for work on computers. You'd be surprised. You have more technology skills than you realize. But still, as advisors, we're here to kind of lay out what the technology is that we use and make sure that isn't a roadblock for you. Some of the expectations, am I going to be able to do this? Am I capable of this? What's all involved? Those are all things that can kind of lead to some hesitancy. And those are things that as advisors, we kind of help work through with you. And then qualifications, do I have the right GPA, the right credits, all that different stuff. Might have kept you from reaching out in the past, but it doesn't hurt to just reach out and say, hey, this is my academic profile. Can you help me see if this is something that I can navigate? And as advisors, that's something that we and other advisors should be able to do for you.
And Andy and I have worked with students from all different backgrounds. So we get a lot of students that come to us and say, "Hey, I'm really embarrassed about this one time I went to this one school. I was not in the mood for school. I was not in the mode. Life was happening. Things were crazy. And my grades don't reflect what I expected of myself." And Andy and I are here to not judge anybody. We obviously understand that, and students are coming from a lot of different backgrounds, and we understand the reason that you're either coming back to school or continue education might be because of what happened in the past. We're here to work around that. A lot of times, Andy and I will work and look at those transcripts and look at the positive parts of those, really highlight those in your transfer evaluations and things like that. In your expectations, we understand we have to manage as well. Maybe you went to school multiple years ago and you're a straight A student and you're not sure if you can get straight A's again. That might be something that we just have to have a real talk about is what are your expectations? What's your end goal here? Is it to get A's or is it really to enhance yourself, enhance your education, and work towards those incentives that we just mentioned? So we understand these roadblocks. They're common. We want to put these up here because you're not the only one that's struggling with these and that are preventing you from reaching out. Every adult student is looking at one or more of these and saying, this is just why I can't move forward with this or why I won't even reach out to Trey or Amy. You're not alone. So what can you ask? What are some things that can help you through this process if you're just thinking about continuing your education, whether it be those personal or professional goals? First of all, you might be wondering, how do my previous credits transfer into a program or what credits can I use? So I work in a degree completion program where I'm taking students who have gone to school before but didn't finish their bachelor's degrees. Andy's working with students that have their bachelor's degrees and are now going towards that graduate level. We will put together customized plans that show you exactly what's transferring over and how it's transferring over, and then also what you have left. This will help you define your cost, your time to completion, and all those things. So that's one of our first steps that we will take with you, and that's something that you should ask of every institution. What formats do you offer? Online versus evening courses for adult learners are the two big ones. Right now, a lot of students can only do online. That's something that you're going to want to determine right away with programs, and Andy and I both offer those online programs. Your cost per credit. A lot of times students will look at the total cost of a program, but it might be easier to break down that cost per credit. Then you'll know based on what you're transferring in, what your true cost is with the program. And then ask things like, hey, are books included in tuition? Can I get a list of the books that you guys require? Then you can look up and see if there are any additional fees or costs that might be incurred because the big thing here that a lot of students are going to look for is that roadblock cost. Want to make sure that this is something that they can afford or that fits into their personal budget. Going off of that, how do I apply for financial aid? Maybe you have never applied for financial aid. Maybe you've applied for financial aid 10, 15, 20 years ago. Whatever it may be, Andy are going to be here to help you through that process. Make sure you at least get a financial aid award in. You may not decide to use your financial aid award. That's fine. But it doesn't hurt to fill that out and see what you qualify for, especially if it's been a while since you have applied for financial aid.
To piggyback off of what Trey said, something with cost that I always encourage students to think about is, when you buy a car, if somebody says, do you have $20,000, $30,000 right now to buy that car? Likelihood is for most of us, we don't have that cash up front and there can be a sticker shock there. But when you start looking at paying that off over a course of months, some time, now all of a sudden the cost becomes more manageable because you're paying it off on a month-to-month basis. So one thing that I always offer students, and I would encourage you to ask of your advisor, would be, can you break this down on what a per week cost this would look like for me, a per month cost? What would that payment plan look like to break it down into more manageable numbers so you can start seeing, is this something that I can afford in my budget? Another thing that I would encourage everybody to ask is how long is it taking for somebody at the institution I have applied to, inquired of, how long is it taking them to get back to me? Big schools have more to offer, but smaller schools can give a lot better customer service more than likely. And if you're not hearing back from somebody within 24 hours, that's the expectation that Trey and I have for each other, for the students that we work with. And that's something that you should expect of the advisors you work with. 24-hour turnaround time to at least acknowledge what you sent them. Maybe not have the answer written necessarily, but 24 hours to acknowledge what you sent them and to get you some sort of feedback. So expect that of the advisors that you work with. Looking at the right-hand side of this column, a lot of people think that I can only start in fall, or that's kind of the time when everybody starts school. A lot of programs have multiple starts throughout the year. I know in my program we have 5. So always asking like, when is the next start? You'd be surprised. There's probably one coming around the corner, which means you don't have to put this off any longer. You can jump right in and get started. Knowing what the outcomes of your degree are and how they're going to help you land a job, or a promotion, that's really important to know. So, ask your advisors to really give that to you and say, hey, what have people done with this? Where have they gone? What kind of promotions, job increases, pay increases have they gotten? And it might cause you to not work with some of our alum of the program that you're looking into, and to ask them what their outcomes of the program have been. And then lastly, look at what student services your program offers, that you're looking into, to figure out how you're going to be supported as you go along, in that program, and help you get to your end goal, which is to graduate.
So these are general questions that we encourage everyone to ask because we actually do think that they will help you overcome a lot of the concerns from the previous slide. So they go hand in hand. If you can work on these questions and have these at the forefront, you may have other ones. And definitely students that Andy and I work with, the range of concerns or questions they have are all over the place. These are the big ones, though, that should at least give you the framework of what your program will look like so that you can feel comfortable about the next decision you're going to make. So talking about next steps, what can they be? If you're looking at this saying, these are all great, but how do I start this process? Reach out. Andy or I can be a resource to you to start this process, whether you're interested in one of our programs or not. We can help you get a personalized plan for one of our programs, but typically any other school that you're going to reach out to for programs, ask for that personalized plan, that transcript evaluation that they can give you and say, this is exactly what you have left to complete. This is the amount of courses you're going to take at this cost over this time frame. Acclimate yourself with that school once you do get a little bit closer to making a decision. Ask to get into their systems, logins, feel around their system so you can say, oh, this is what an online class or course for me would look like, and compare with other options. It's the best decision you're going to make is when you feel good about that decision, and the best way to feel good about the decision is to go shop around. Andy and I know that. That's why we want to give you as much information as possible, as clear as possible, that you can really just kind of take in, and it's palatable so that you can compare with other schools. And this is why we're doing this right now, is to give you these questions to ask other schools. So solidify your support system, like Andy said. Make sure that your family's on board with this. If you have a supportive employer, maybe they offer a reimbursement program. Let them know what you're doing. Share with them the programs you're interested in. They might say, awesome, we'd love to help contribute towards this because we see this as a value to our organization. And then finally, when you're ready and you have all these details in front of you, commit. The reason that we have multiple start dates a year for our programs is we know that sometimes with all these roadblocks and concerns that you have as a non-traditional adult learner going back to school or continue your education with work and family and everything else going on in the background, is when you're motivated, that's the time to really move forward with this, because once you get going, you'll be surprised in how quick this process can go and how soon you might be walking across that stage with your diploma. But the biggest part is to finally get where you're comfortable to commit to this. So hopefully these questions, this is giving you some normalization of, hey, I'm not in this alone. All these roadblocks and concerns are very similar among other adult learners, and Andy and I can be a resource to you. So I'm going to just go back to who we are. In this article below, you'll see our contact information. Feel free to reach out to us anytime, whether you're someone working towards your bachelor's degree, you have some college, you would reach out to me. If you're someone that's looking at your graduate options for a graduate program, you can reach out to Andy.